Okay, hello everyone. Thank you again for joining our workshop. We're going to go ahead and get started. I just do want to remind everybody that we'll be doing attendance at the end, and that'll be through a survey link. So Demi, my co-host for this presentation, will be releasing that in the chat. So if you have any questions about that at all, feel free to chat us. And if you have any questions during the presentation, also feel free to leave them in the chat for us. So the workshop today will be discussing writing a personal statement versus a statement of purpose. Wait. Oh, sorry, I didn't introduce you. My name's Elizabeth, and I'm part of the Trio SSP program as a peer mentor. And then I'll let Demi introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Demi Ayala, and I am also a peer mentor for the SSSP program, and welcome to our workshop.
Okay. Okay, so as a start off, kind of maybe who needs to know about the statement of purpose and as well as a personal statement. This is usually geared towards like undergrad applicants, graduate applicants as well, like for master's programs, PhD programs, as well as law school and med school, as well as scholarship and fellowship. And so here I've included kind of examples of maybe programs that may ask for a personal statement or a statement of purpose. On the upper left-hand side, this is the graduate program for marriage, family, and child counseling. And so as you can see in the admissions criteria, they ask for a statement of purpose. On the lower right-hand corner, UCLA Law, they ask for a personal statement. And there's kind of includes more of a detailed description of what they look for, which may not always be the case. So we'll kind of discuss how you'll be able to distinguish the differences between them and usually when they're necessary. And so kind of as a startup question, I just kind of want to ask for you guys to answer in the chat, how many of you think a personal statement and a statement of purpose are basically the same? If you think they're different, maybe like kind of an example as to how they're different, or why you think they're the same as well. Okay, we have a response to people agreeing with that one as well. Okay, I could keep putting your responses if you do want to type in there. But yeah, basically Winston kind of tied that in together. I think they're different qualities, topics. Yeah. Well, expenses, yeah, for true. Sometimes there is confusion about a personal statement and a statement of purpose. This can really be because sometimes there is an overlap of content between them. And sometimes there may not be like clear differences or distinctions, even when they're asking for them, like in a program or an admissions criteria. Thank you guys for responding as well. For journey and experiences. Yeah, sometimes they can be very common as well. Thank you. So kind of going into that, kind of discussing why this matters. So kind of it can kind of make or break your application depending on how you write the personal statement and a statement of purpose. Both of them are able to provide more description and clarity about you and your goals. And so ensuring that you're explaining to an admissions committee kind of your intention. And sometimes the content of them could be different. So your explanations could be different. And it could add on to like resumes if that's what you're submitting in your admissions criteria, and as well as other aspects about you. And so it also shows that you can follow directions clearly, right? If an admissions committee is asking for a personal statement, but you write more of a statement of purpose, it may not give them the whole picture about you and kind of your goals. And so just knowing that difference ensures you deliver the right message in the right format so the admissions committee can clearly see both who you are and what you plan to achieve, right? Without any confusion or misexpectation. And so I'll be describing here what is a personal statement. So a personal statement highlights who you are, your background, your experiences and values, and a personal journey that's helped shape your goals. And so usually what's required is kind of discussing a meaningful life or academic experience and challenges or growth that you've experienced as well. And these will connect to your motivation for applying. Usually the tone's a little bit more reflective and authentic, more of a narrative. So it's more personal and a story driven rather than formal. And narrative is really just like a personal narrative discussing more of like who you are. And so on the flip side of that, a statement of purpose. So a statement of purpose usually explains what you want to do, your academic interests, research goals, and your overall career direction. And usually what is required is clear goals, relevant academic background, specific interest in the program. So maybe you worked with specific faculty or different research areas, and you'll tie that into your statement of purpose. And so how this overall also fits into your future plans. So the tone of a statement of purpose is a lot more formal and focused, professional, and it's direct and goal oriented rather than narrative, as we saw in the personal statement. Here, I kind of just distinguish the major differences between them. So a personal statement really focuses on your personal background and your identity. You do this through storytelling, so to highlight the growth and challenges for really defining moments in your life. And those really emphasize the character, values, and motivations of yourself. It includes both academic and non-academic experiences. So usually you'll describe kind of more about you and your life and how that ties into your academics and maybe your overall goals as well. So it's more reflective and emotional and a narrative tone. Whereas a statement of purpose focuses on academic interests, your career goals, and the professional direction. Usually highlights more like of your coursework, research, and achievements. It explains why you chose that specific field or that specific program. And it demonstrates how your goals align with that program as well. So usually more formal and professional tone. In this slide, I kind of just break down the anatomy of a personal statement and maybe kind of a guide to help writing a personal statement. So more of the ideal structure. So the first start off would be the hook, which usually just grabs the attention, right, of the reader. Usually you could talk about a very important moment, maybe an experience that you'll be describing throughout the personal statement that was an important aspect of your life or an experience that you had. Then you could go into your background and context. So providing more context on your family, culture, and environment. Again, kind of describing your values and who you are as a person. And usually those key experiences and growth will follow through as well. So you'll discuss a very pivotal moment, kind of what you introduced in the hook, but maybe a little bit more descriptive, and kind of how that's aligning back to your goals as well, which you'll see for the fourth bullet point. And in the conclusion, you'll kind of just tie all of these together as well. And so a key topics that you want to hit on in a personal statement really is just life experience, your identity, and your personal growth. So someone meeting this in the admissions committee could really see like who you are and know about your life just a little bit more. And so it's important to explain what inspires you and your experiences. So a question you could think about when writing a personal statement to kind of help start off that is, why am I the person I am today? In this slide, I kind of detail more of the anatomy of a statement of purpose. So the ideal structure here could be starting off with the clear academic interest statement. So really defining where your academic interest lies at, and maybe even kind of going into the academic background as well, discussing maybe foundation if you received a bachelor's, if you're applying to a graduate program, kind of explaining how you've had that foundation in your academic journey and where you want to continue that at. And you also want to describe your research and professional experience. Sometimes I know some students applying to grad programs don't have necessarily research experience, but it's really important to highlight how your professional experience can tie to that as well. Maybe jobs that you've had that relate to that or relate to your academic interests as well. The fourth one is why this program specifically. It's really important that you highlight what this program has to offer and why it applies to you, and why it would help benefit your career goals. You don't really want to be general here. You really want to be specific on maybe coursework that's offered at that program, maybe even specific hands-on experience they have. So that way you're able to really tie in how your interests align with that program. And the fifth one would be just overall your career goals. Again, tying in how your academic interests, your experience, how that really sets you up for this program. And the important differences between the statement of purpose again and the personal statement is really, you see in the structure, there's no like storytelling or unnecessary kind of like childhood stories or experiences. It's really academic focus. And it focuses on your qualifications and your overall direction. And so the important topics or specifics that you want to hit on is maybe professors, lab experience, coursework, research, or overall professional experience is kind of like how I discussed. Those are really things that you want to include in a statement of purpose. And the overall question here that you would want to be kind of thinking of when writing a statement of purpose is what do I want to study and achieve and why here? So again, kind of being more specific to that program.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. So we'll be getting into some comparisons, and for right now, we'll focus on common mistakes. So with personal statements, there are like three common mistakes that typically happens when writing them. Is for one, trauma dumping without reflection, being overly dramatic, and no clear connection to goals. And now on the right side, I do have some two statements, and we'll be seeing how like which example is stronger than the other and the difference between them. So one says, my childhood was extremely difficult. I faced many struggles growing up and had to deal with many challenges. Versus, growing up in a household where English was not spoken forced me to navigate school systems on my own. This challenge taught me resilience and sparked my interest in education policy. Does anyone want to sorry. Does anyone want to point out anything of which one is strong, what makes stronger than the other one? What are the qualities that are like different in both these examples? You could unmute yourself or write in the chat, whichever you feel more comfortable.
From what I see, the second one is stronger. It shows the trouble they went through, but also shows how they came out of it.
Yes, yes. Does anyone else want to uh add on more to that. Jaden said that one clarifies more of the struggles. And oh, I guess like you could correct me if I'm wrong, Jaden, that like the second one was clarifying what exactly they had struggled through than the other one.
Yeah, that too. It made it more specific, not just, oh, I had an extremely difficult childhood, because that's also
Mm.
not believable. Like, okay, what was difficult about your childhood?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Jaden does make a really great point. A problem with the first one, it's a little bit too vague, um, because the reader won't know what kind of struggles you had growing up. And because when with these personal statements, everyone is gonna have a struggle, but we don't know exactly what kind of specific struggles you faced. And for this example, the second one had that they labeled that they were in a household where English was not spoken a lot and that they had to navigate through the school system on their own. And so that's where we could see highlighted of what exactly they struggled. Oh, yeah. The second highlights the reflective elements in the individual's journey. It shows self-agency and willingness to grow through their specific challenge. Yes, that is actually a really great example as well. Because the because in the first one it just says that they had to deal with their challenges. And so in the second one shows like how their challenges made them to have the interest in education policy. These are really great responses. Thank you, William and Jaden. And next slide. And so in this one, we're going to be talking about a statement of purpose. And typically when talking about statement of purpose, it's typically referred to SOP. So from here on out, when I say SOP, I mean statement of purpose. So in statement of purpose, there are four things that are very common mistakes when writing is being too vague, listing resume achievements, not naming specific program details, and writing a personal narrative instead of an academic focus. And now what I mean by that last part is um and making sure that not a lot of like personal of like what you struggled as a in your childhood and high school and college, but really focusing what you have worked, kind of what Elizabeth mentioned earlier, is focusing what you have done in your academics and your job experience to be in a statement of purpose instead of your personal struggles compared to the what was it? Personal statements. Um, and also, I want to clarify about listing resume achievements. It is good to list on what you want, like what you have done in your statement of purpose, but you don't want that to be the only thing. You want to be able to explain how these achievements are benefiting to your education or you continuing your education. So on the right, just like the previous one, we have two examples. One says, ever since I was a child, I have always loved science. I remember mixing random liquids in my kitchen and pretending to be a scientist versus, sorry. And then to the next one, my interest in chemical engineering uh, developed during my undergrad research on polymer synthesis where I explored sustainable materials for industrial applications. Now, does anyone want to point out any um, like elements in these two? Which one is more stronger than the other one, or what is the difference between the first example versus the second example? You can always type in the chat if you feel more comfortable with that too.
All right, the first one, I just want to say, I hope they're doing all right. I hope they're alive because mixing random liquids in the kitchen doesn't sound like a safe idea.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Secondly, they're vague on what the liquids are, and it sounds more like a personal narrative. It's like recalling a childhood memory you had.
Mm. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, that is true. So this is an example of having that personal narrative in your writing. And because in the second one, they were more academic focused. They said during their time in chemical engineering, they did research on polymer synthesis, and that's how they explored into what they are interested. So that one is more focusing on what they want to do as they continue their education, versus the second one is like, when I was a kid, I loved like doing like ra mixing random liquids, which is nice, but for the purpose of this statement of purpose, we don't want to like talk about that. We want to focus on your academics and also for listing resume achievements, um, we can see in the second paragraph, they didn't list their achieve like just give like bullet points of their achievements, but they kind of delved into how they got to where they are in their education and how they will further like explore that. So they said where I explored sustainable materials for industrial applications. So they explained how they explore that, in which it was from their undergrad experience. Right, thank you. Okay, so we have a little activity. So for this one is to identify the essay type. So while I read out the essay type, think about the tone, focus, and whether it discusses personal experience or academic goals. You continue. You Okay, in example one, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. I watched my family struggle to understand the changes happening to her. Spending time with doctors and caregivers sparked my interest in neuroscience and the ways of research can improve the lives of patients and family. So who wants to take a jab at? at this example one. You could also you could also say what you believe if it's either a personal statement or a statement of purpose in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, that's okay too. Personal statement, okay. Okay. Okay, so we have two personal statements and one statement of purpose. Okay, thank you for commenting. So the this example one is a personal statement. So why is it a personal statement? Because it talked about their experience um with their grandmother, and that's more of like the towards a personal narrative in this writing. So they talked about how their grandmother and how they watched their family struggle to understand what was going on and their time with the caregivers and doctors. So that's an example of how this is a personal statement. Um, and also this to focus on a life moment that shaped their motivation to wanting to help improve the lives of the patients and families. And so that's what makes this a personal statement than a statement of purpose. Next example. Okay. So this second example is my undergrad studies in political science allowed me to explore public policy analysis and economic development. Through my senior research project on urban housing policy, I developed a strong interest in sustainable city planning, which I hope to further investigate in graduate studies. Okay, this is a hard one, okay? Who would like to, you could put your answers in the chat. Yes, the tone sounds more academic. Yes, yes, thank you. Yes, it is a statement of purpose. Yes, so. Um, compared to the first example, as somebody mentioned, it does have a more academic tone to this. And that is because they mention more of what they have done in their studies that will that kind of like continues like it kind of sounds redundant, but they continue their education. And I guess that is also another point that kind of like reminds you what is a statement of purpose, because it is to further show how what you learned, your experiences will further develop you as you get into your grad school or an application for a job. If they ask for a statement of purpose, then you're showing how your experience continues your interest in that field. And did I have, and yes, and also I kind of referring to how like in this is sorry, in this second example, they also list on what they have done, and they explained it of how their experience got them to where they are instead of just listing them. Yes. Can you? Okay, so now that we know like the differences, so how do we start writing these? So for personal statement, we want to ask what moment changed me, what challenge shaped me, and what values define me. And that really helps to kind of look back on your personal experience, and that's kind of what the personal statement is going to be for, to look back at your personal experience and see um where was that pivotal moment that like made you want to um get into in medical school, or in counseling services, like what was that moment, that challenge, that changed what you want to do. And now for the SOP, some questions you could ask yourself, what specific field am I pursuing? What research interests me? And what skills prepare me? And if you don't have any research background, always focus on what skills, what's your experience in that field. If say you want to do school psychology, what kind of experience do you have to show that you are interested, you are working towards that career path? And and so now we have a step-by-step writing plan. Um, this one, okay, sorry. And so for this one, the step one is analyze the prompt and outline. Oh, analyze the prompt. Step two, outline. Step three, draft without over editing. Step four, revise for clarity. And step five, get feedback. So for the prompt, for step one, make sure that you are looking over that prompt and checking that if they have any specific questions they need you to answer. If and also this would be really great because sometimes they do have format requirements. If they want it to be Times New Roman, if they need it to be LMA format. So it's really important that you do analyze the prompt to make sure that you're answering the questions and you're having it in the correct format that they want. Step two, of course, doing an outline for your writing assignment or for any writing assignment is great to have a plan and also making sure that each paragraph flows through. And then step three, draft without over editing. So I always have to bring dump on my paper. Sometimes it could get really overwhelming and you start to just well, for me, I like I start to like checking if my grammar is correct, but you don't have to do that as you're writing it. The important thing is that you're getting words onto that paper because in step four, you will revise for clarity. And that's when you could look back on your papers. You're like, oh, that didn't sound like I explained well, so let me rewrite it this way. And so you could just rewrite it and also checking if you answered the questions of the prompt. And step five, which is really important, is to get the feedback. Send your statement of purpose or personal statement to teachers, to your friends, family, to almost anybody. Oh, and also you can send it to Alyssa. And here at the Trio office, we also will help you in those in this because not only sometimes it feels a little bit intimidating. Um, yeah, yes, thank you, Alyssa. Yes, and Alyssa is our reading and writing specialist for the TRIO program. And I'll get into more about the some ways that you could get help. And but yes, so make sure you get that feedback just to make sure that everything looks good, answer the questions, and it's in the correct format. Next. And now some formatting and final tips. So typically for these types of papers for both statement purpose and personal statements, they are about 1 to 2 pages, unless if they specify if they need it to be longer or strictly 1 to 2 pages or just 1 page. And typically it is in the font size is 12. The standard margins for most writing papers is typically like 1 inch margins. And make sure you're having clear paragraphs, that one paragraph flows to the other one, good transition. And of course, goes without saying, no slang. It is a professional piece of paper that other academic um, what would it be called? Acad yes, academic committees, academic committees will be looking at this. So you don't want to put any slang, any cussing, of course. It is strictly a professional piece of paper that professionals will be reading it. And always follow program instructions first. Kind of what we saw in the early on in the presentation that Elizabeth showed of two examples of it was UCLA. Yeah, UCLA and Berkeley. They're showing the prompts and also any instructions that they require, any specifications of the formatting. So always make sure that you're following their requirements because if you're not answering their questions, then it's not as competitive. Next one. And then, so here are some two ways to look for help. First one is the Writing Center, and they are located in the Crimmon building. And they're great because they have group sessions where you could talk with other students and they could help to collaborate, come up with any ideas. And these are their hours. And then, of course, we have the Learning Center. I don't know if anyone has been to the Learning Center here on campus, but it is located on the basement of the library. And their hours are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the Learning Center is also great. They have drop-in appointments too. And what else about the Learning Center?
Can
Yeah,
I
they have like great. Yes.
as I mentioned, I have been in there, and it's also a great place just to study. Like it's a great place to get
Mm-hmm.
some work done. It's nothing loud, so it's a good place to study if you want to.
Yes, it is a great place to study. And even just to get in that mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna have to write this paper today. So it is a great place to be here in the library. And next one. And then, of course, we do have the Career Development Center. The Career Development Center is also a great place to go and get your resume looked at, but you can also go there to get your statement of purpose or personal statement to look at. You do have your college lar large liaison. Sorry, that word always messes me up. You have your college liaison, and so they are more familiar in the career paths according to your college. If you have any other questions about your college liaison, you can always come to TRIO office, um, and we could help you to figure that out too. And of course, lastly, we do have our TRIO office available to all of our TRIO students. We have an amazing tutor, Brenda, and we also have our amazing Alyssa as well. And Alyssa is our reading and writing specialist in Yes. We have our reading and writing specialist, and she is always open to helping each and every one of you and to look over your papers. And both Brenda and Alyssa are really great on giving you that feedback and making sure that paper is polished up for you. So you can always make your appointment and also make an appointment with your tutors will count as a learning activity too. So, yes, keep in mind of the TRIO office, we are more than happy to help you. And we will always go over in looking at the prompt and making sure you have that down in your paper. And also it's a great place to get your homework done as well. Okay. And then so final takeaways. So remember that personal statement is what shaped you, and the statement of purpose is what you will do academically. And, and of course, the similarities of them that they will need is clarity, structure, and authenticity. Remember, it's okay to sometimes it's a little bit like daunting. You're putting yourself on a piece of paper, you're putting your experience, what you have learned. And so, um, it's okay to take some steps in writing it. And that's why there's so much support for you, especially here being a trio student. We will always be there to give you that support. And and lastly, double check on your writing requirements. So if does anyone have any questions?
You go back to the first slide. It was mentioning something about who needs to know.
Yes. Yes, typically for these personal statements is when you're going to graduate school. Do you want to explain? Okay, Elizabeth will explain um, more about this.
Yeah, I kind of detail the areas that usually like a personal statement or a statement of purpose may be asked of you. Of course, most of you are in your undergrad, if not already in a grad program. So sometimes they'll ask that for undergrad applicants, but as well as graduate applications. So like for master's program, kind of like I showed on this next slide, like the marriage, family, and child counseling master's program asks for a statement of purpose. UCLA law asks for more of a personal statement. And this is kind of what Demi was referring to as well, that sometimes the admissions criteria will also have more specifications. So like for UCLA law, they don't want anything less than a 12-point bond. And so just kind of things following those type of specifications. But sometimes scholarships and fellowships as well will ask for that. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
And also, I will be putting in the chat of the link to our survey that you need to fill out to count this as your learning activity. And so we'll give some time for everybody to click on that and fill it out. Does anyone else have any questions about statement of purpose or personal statement?